There is a secret Redmi K30 variant, and it's one that only China gets. It's important to understand why Xiaomi made this variant of the Redmi K30 Pro, why we don't get it, and why, for me, in many ways, it kind of is the perfect phone. Fucking rainy season in Hanoi. I promise you that as soon as winter comes and the rainy season kind of comes to an end, we're going to be going out to the old quarter. We're going to be talking about tech in the craziest of places, and this channel is going to get a lot more interesting. But right now, my options are either go out during the sweltering heat, 35-degree days, or we have rain. Would you look at that? Rock out with your cock out. Now, the Snapdragon 865 was launched March of this year, and Xiaomi had to make a couple of devices. They needed to make their flagship device for that period in time, which was the Xiaomi Mi 10 Pro. And that device essentially has the same camera setup as the Xiaomi Mi Note 10 Pro or the Xiaomi Mi CC9 Pro. And the Xiaomi Mi 10 Pro is a really good device. The build quality of the Xiaomi Mi 10 series is definitely a step above the build quality of the Xiaomi Redmi series of devices. The vibration and haptics feel better. It does have a brighter display, and it's overall just a little bit better, but at a significantly higher price. Even though it's raining right now, I need to head to the studio because I'm about to get what, in my opinion, might be some of the most exciting headphones to come out in this year. But along with the Xiaomi Mi 10 and Mi 10 Pro, Xiaomi needed to make their line of like affordable flagships, or the flagships with a lot of exceptions. So they made the Redmi K30 Pro. But for the international market, Xiaomi can't launch devices that might cannibalize each other. They can't release a phone with the same processor and similar in performance cameras to their flagship model in the international market because they need to give people a reason to buy their flagship device. In China, though, it's a little bit different. Because Xiaomi is a more established brand in China, because Redmi is a more established brand in China, people look at the devices a little bit more spread out as opposed to just having one brand name, because Xiaomi's done a lot to already differentiate its devices in its home Chinese market. And that brings us to this secret K30 Pro that isn't for international release. Because in a lot of ways, Xiaomi gave us a Redmi K30 Pro that's got similar cameras to the Xiaomi Mi 10, except it has a telephoto camera, and its main camera and its telephoto camera are optically stabilized, which is a camera array that I don't think we have in any other Xiaomi devices. So all around Vietnam, you guys will see these ceremonial burning fireplaces, and people buy like colored paper, or it's supposed to be like ornamental money, and they burn it in here, and it's an offering to dead relatives and to the gods. And it's very holy. As you see, there is a website, garbage, and a ton of cigarette butts. Damn, are you guys enjoying this video and you want to support me? Best way to do that is hit the subscribe button. If you guys want to interact with me, Twitter is an excellent place to do so. Also, check out my Telegram channel in the description down below. And if you guys want to put some money into my pocket, just use my affiliate links. Okay, back to the video. Now, if you haven't figured out what device I'm talking about yet, it's the Redmi K30 Pro Zoom. And it's a device that's really odd. The IMX686 is not a flagship sensor. In fact, there's no flagships currently on the market that utilize the IMX686. So it's not a flagship sensor, although it is a very good sensor. Xiaomi paired that with optical image stabilization because Xiaomi doesn't support 4K 60 or 60 frames a second with EIS on any of their devices. So we now have 4K 60 with stabilization. We have a pretty good telephoto camera with optical image stabilization. We have the 13 megapixel ultra wide camera that's on the Mi 10, the regular K30, or the K30 5G, and the K30 Pro. So in regards to cameras, all of the cameras on the Redmi K30 Pro zoom are definitely a step above the regular K30. And in some ways, they're above the Xiaomi Mi 10, which I have. In regards to specs, the screen on the K30 Pro and K30 Pro zoom is the same, fingerprint scanner is the same, but it's got UFS 3.1 and LPDDR5 RAM, which is a higher spec than what we have on the Xiaomi Mi 10. It has a flat display, which in my opinion is a reason to get that over the Xiaomi Mi 10 because I'm not a fan of the curved display. It's got the uninterrupted screen with a pop-up camera, which I couldn't really care less about, but it is something that some people like. The only problem is that the Redmi K30 Pro zoom is extremely close in price to the Xiaomi Mi 10. The reality of the K30 Pro zoom is that its performance in the areas that people really care about is far too close to that of the Xiaomi Mi 10. And the build quality is close to the Xiaomi Mi 10. And for Xiaomi to launch both devices internationally would just be too hard for them to differentiate it, which is why the K30 Pro has a 60 Hz display. Xiaomi doesn't want to make a flagship killer that kills the Xiaomi flagship. And so some of you guys might be thinking why I didn't get the K30 Pro zoom. Well, when I bought my K30 Pro, I thought that it had optical image stabilization. Check out that video here about why I regret buying the K30 Pro. And why I didn't buy it instead of the Xiaomi Mi 10? Well, it's such a niche device that so many people buy that I couldn't find a K30 Pro zoom used. And new in Vietnam, the device is like 680 bucks, 670 bucks, which at that price, if I'm gonna buy another device for that price, I'd much rather find a used Xiaomi Mi 10 Pro because it's just a better device than the K30 Pro. So I could either have bought a used Mi 10 Pro used like for a month or two by someone. And so some of you guys might be thinking why I didn't get the K30 Pro zoom. Well, when I bought my K30 Pro, I thought that it had optical image stabilization. Check out that video here about why I regret buying the K30 Pro. And why I didn't buy it instead of the Xiaomi Mi 10? Well, it's such a niche device that so many people buy that I couldn't find a K30 Pro zoom used. And new in Vietnam, the device is like 680 bucks, 670 bucks, which at that price, if I'm gonna buy another device for that price, I'd much rather find a used Xiaomi Mi 10 Pro because it's just a better device than the K30 Pro. So I could either have bought a used Mi 10 Pro used like for a month or two by someone, or I could have gotten a brand new Redmi K30 Pro zoom, and it just didn't make sense for me to buy that device. And then that brings us to talking about Xiaomi's motivation for the Redmi K30 Ultra. And that's just a device that comes in at a lower tier, that's cheaper with a worse camera and aimed really at like mobile gamers. And that's kind of that clear differentiation that Xiaomi needs in their lineup in order to produce devices for its home audience as well as audiences in developing countries. Damn, partner, you might be sad that this video is over, but don't worry. Go ahead and check out this video right here. It might be a camera comparison, or check out this video right here where I talk about headphones. Either way, I'll wait for you.